I'm pleased to introduce our guest, Ellie Ahmadi, a seasoned marketing executive who brings a wealth of experience across digital platforms, specializing in leveraging data to craft targeted campaigns. It's so good to have you here with us, Ellie. I turn the
Thank you.
floor over to you.
Thank you, Jeff. And hi, everyone. So happy to be here. Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you may be. I'm going to share my slides in a minute, but I wanted to just to set the stage. I kind of crafted this conversation for assuming that audience doesn't know a lot about what happens when you're interacting with anything online. So if you're a lot more savvier than that and you have questions, please ask me, but I may not have some of the technical responses for you, but I'll do my best. I started my career in marketing, my digital career kind of at the dawn of when all of this was happening and things were going online. And so I kind of had to grow up with it. And I had the opportunity to manage a lot of digital teams for a lot of different organizations. So I'm here to, and I will do my best to share what I think is important to you. So let's dive in. All right, so let's get started. I might have to switch. Let's see. There we go. Okay, so what is a digital footprint? This is, it's very similar to the footprints, as you can see, leave in the sand. So any action that you take when you're on your phone, you're on any kind of browser, this is your digital footprint. So it's a trail of data and information about yourself that you're kind of leaving behind. It's important to know this because you want to understand what kind of information you're giving away voluntarily and what kind of information is being collected about you without maybe not so much your knowledge, and to make sure that you understand where you can manage some of these and where are some of the triggers that you can do to block some of this information and not share as much as you would like to share, but also be aware of where the danger might lie, right? So a lot of the information you might share, you may not want to turn it off because when we talk about the experience, you may say, oh yeah, I actually like that. I actually do want them to know what it is that I'm interested in. But there are some areas that you have to be careful of what it is that the actions that you're taking and interacting with this huge worldwide web of ours. So your digital footprint, there are two types of footprints. There's your active footprints. This is what you choose to do. You intentionally share, right? This is when you post stuff on social media, when you send an email, when you fill out a form to register for this webinar that we're on. Those are what we call an active footprint, right? And then there's the passive stuff that you may not be so much aware of, that this can be, you looked around some website, you interacted with some apps on your phone has your location turned on, right? So you might start to get some ads about things that are nearby, or you might be in a location, you might be traveling, and all of a sudden you're seeing advertising for some of a restaurant or something that's within the region, and you're wondering, well, how do they know I'm here? So those are some of the passive ways that a lot of marketeers are gathering data from you. So again, this is a list of some of the other things that you may or may not be aware of. The games you play, the comments you post. In the picture, they're mostly your active footprints, things that you do, right? So your information is used. Now we're going to talk about cookies and pixels in a minute, but basically you've got your browsing history on your website. So if you go to look at all the websites that you look, these are all stored on your computer. And they're there, and you can go in and actively delete them or just completely clear your browser, but the history is sitting there. So if you ever wanted to find out, it's like, oh, I can't remember what page, and I really um, want to go back to that page, but I don't know where it was. I don't know what I typed in. If you go into your browsing history on your computer, you could probably find that page, unless you actively manage it and you go in every once in a while and you clean it up. The other thing that you might not be so aware of is the cookies, or what we call cookies and tracking pixels. This is where websites and the actions you take, a lot of marketeers are dropping on your browser, and they're tracking you as you move around the different sites and you buy different things. And this loop is kind of feeding it back to those advertisers who have paid for that information to serve you certain ads. So it is these little codes that are being dropped, and we'll talk about that, I think, in the next slide to kind of get in there. Cookies and pixels. So what are cookies? I think you probably have heard about cookies all the time, but these are little files that are stored on the websites to remember what you're interested in. So if you go to on a website to shop and you browse certain items, it remembers all those actions that you're taking, and it assumes that you're interested in those items. The things that you read, if you go on a website that serves a lot of articles or content, it makes an assumption about you that you're interested in this type of information, and you might see more of that served to you. So I'm going to stick with that example for a bit. So if you go on, let's say, a company website that creates a lot of articles about different topics, business topics, which is where I didn't come from the retail or the consumer line of business, but which is all those fun ads that you may receive, and you go, oh, I just bought this item. Why isn't it showing to me again? But where companies sell to other companies and they maybe create a lot of content or demos of their softwares, the actions you take um, kind of assigns you as a potential buyer, right? So they might think these are triggers that, oh, Ellie has read 3 articles about what I offer and might have even asked for a demo. So she might be a buyer of the product that I'm offering. And then I might start to get um, these ads or these emails that are personalized to me to try to get me to engage with them more and eventually make me buy from them. That's an example of a business. But what happens in the consumer side when you're buying a product, let's say you looked up a pair of shoes, right? You start to see that ad, and you might start to get email from that company that said, hey, these shoes, are you still interested? Or you might also be interested in this other ones because that company has made some assumption based on all of our behaviors to say that people that looked at this pair of shoes might also be interested in this one and this one and this one. And all of that, they build those based on my behavior, your behavior, anybody's behavior that goes to that website. So it's a collective of the information that they have gathered about us and making an assumption. Okay.
It looks like someone
There's a raise
raised their
hand.
hand, but they said it was an error. So
Okay. Gotcha. I'm gonna see if I can remove that. Oh, all right. Here we go. Okay, well, how marketeers such as myself use their data? So data collection. We talked about the cookies and the pixel, and then we have the system in the background that we can look at all that data and analyze and make assumptions and forecasts about what a behavior model and what a purchase model might be like. Those come from a lot of those cookies and pixels, which are tiny codes that are dropped that we just talked about. The build user profile, this is your demographic behavioral information. So any site that might ask you or be aware of who you are, your age, where you might live, what you like to purchase, just kind of gathering that information, what you might have purchased before, the behavioral data, all of that stuff is what we call a profile of a person, right? And a lot of folks that might use this is again going back, this is your product people, your retailers, they're more interested in the demographics and so on, where you live, because it's more applicable than a business selling to a business, right? Then they use this information to target us. They might target us based on what they think, based on our behavior or our purchase patterns, of what our interest might be. Contextual targeting is when they assume by what you read. So if you read something about fitness, right, now they're going to serve you more of that content, And within that content, so let's stick with the fitness example. If I read a lot of stuff about fitness, I'm not only going to get served up a lot of material about fitness, but also businesses that sell that type of product to consumers. So I might see an ad in the middle of an article that has to do with Nike, or it might have to do with a gym membership, right? That's what we call here, this is the contextual targeting. The geo-targeting, we kind of talked about, is by your location. The people that live in New York in this subdivision, maybe like myself, might be interested in this particular restaurant or store. And then lookalike audience, it makes assumptions based on, if I am a female of this age and I have done this, that is going to assume, because they don't have enough data, they make these assumptions that, okay, let's assume all the females of this age in that region might have the same interests. Let's start with that and let's start to target them. And then we narrow it down further if we're wrong about our assumption. So that's kind of how they kind of start to target us with their advertising. Retargeting, very similar to targeting, but this is stuff, the actions that you have taken on a website, in your email you received, in your Google search, in your social media. If they have identified you, now they can retarget you. You may not have bought something. You may have taken a bunch of actions and then you left, right? So now they're going to take this information and they're going to retarget you with that information, just to make sure that you don't forget, we're here, you might be interested, you might want to buy. So that's what we call retargeting. And a lot of this eventually leads to these personalized ads, which I'll show you in a second, some examples that I receive, for example. So they have made this decision based on what I have done and who I am, that I might be interested in certain things, and they're going to continue to serve that to me. Now you may be wondering, but I already bought that product. Why do I see this ad again? This is where they don't know, right? So the ad is being purchased through a third party, or they're kind of mitigating what you see, and they're selling that back to the company. They don't necessarily know that you purchased the product already. So it's not that sophisticated. So this is why you're going to continue to see that ad until you tell it. You can sometimes, for example, I'll use Instagram. You might have looked at something and your feed is now flooded with every other post is that particular ad for this thing that you looked at. And at some point you're just like, okay, I'm done. I either bought it or I'm not really interested. I just wanted to look at it. You can tell it to stop sending you that ad. That's even more information that now you're giving Instagram, which is who's going to sell it to that company that bought that ad space. Now they're going to assume, based on what you told them, that either you're not in the market or these types of products are not for you. So every action you take, even when you tell them stop sending me these ads, you're trading another piece of information that they gather about you. So just be
Couple of
mindful.
questions.
Yeah.
One is they can actually get into the content of your email.
No, they cannot get into the content of your email. What you might be asking is the risk, the privacy, or if you're being hacked. Well, I'll talk about that in a second, but these companies cannot get into the content of your email.
And the second one is, are they looking at me specifically, or are they automating ads to me as part of a group that looks like me?
It could be both. You're either, we talked about this lookalike audience. If they don't know enough about you, they might make an assumption it's a new company. They just started advertising. They don't know. So they might assume, because you, based on some of the things they might have gathered about you, they would say, oh, I think they might be similar to Ellie. Let me serve them these ads. However, if you've taken a lot of action, or at some point you have what we call, when you go from anonymous to being known. So you might do a lot of searching, but all they know about you is that cookie, they're tracking you, but they don't know who you are, right? At some point, they want you to fill out information, a form, like how you joined this webinar, right? You gave your name, you gave your email address. Now you are known. So and it's not dangerous. It really just becomes, you can get more personalized information because now they know you, and now they can send you an email where before they didn't know your email address, and they might have just blindly been targeting you with some ads. But now that you have given them information, yes, you're opening that door to more, but you're probably opening again more to more personalized information that's very relevant to you. Hopefully, that is the goal of every company. They want to make sure that they're relevant to what you're looking for. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, very good. I just
Okay.
want to say PSS coming of age only uses your email to give you Zoom information, but we don't use it for other things. And if you subscribe to our newsletter, you'll get our monthly newsletter, but we don't sell your email to anyone.
Yeah, that's a very important distinction. I think you have to be mindful where some of the sites, and you might have to dig around for this information to find it, but there is, and a lot of times is you got to read the terms, which is really long, but a lot of businesses, depending on the type of business, they don't sell your information. They specifically will sell, we don't sell your information to third party. Or you have to click a button to make sure that my information is not sold to third parties. That happens a lot with think some social media, but some of the product companies, retail companies, because they gather so much information about you. They have partners and affiliates, so they may sell that information. So you might have to do a little bit of a digging to try to manage that, to make sure that they're not selling your information to third parties. But when you start to get a lot of emails that you're wondering, well, I didn't really sign up for this, it's probably the that's what's happening, that you filled out some information somewhere, and that company sold your information to third party who might have now sold it to multiple type of businesses.
Wow.
It happens often.
And yeah, Karen asked if you don't want ads and you shouldn't unsubscribe, what's the best way to get future ads put into spam?
I
Oh, she's
think,
talking about email. Yeah.
yeah, okay, yeah, email. um if you end up getting emails that you didn't sign up for, there's always an unsubscribe option. If you scroll all the way down to the bottom of your email, it might come, it's usually highlighted, it's clickable. It will say unsubscribe, or it will say manage your preferences. Manage your preferences is a little tricky because they want you to click on it, and then maybe you don't unsubscribe from everything, but you say, well, I want to get this email, but I don't want to get this type of email from you. I want to get your newsletter, but I don't want to get this. But there's always a unsubscribe from all option in every one of those. So you can always find in the bottom of your email, any of those emails, an unsubscribe option. So you can click that and then unsubscribe from whatever it is. And they have to honor that. It is illegal to not honor that. Now, I personally have seen sometimes there are foreign companies and that don't necessarily honor that, that's dark stuff, but it's still not. If you don't click within anything within that email, you're okay. Just put it in your junk folder, and eventually it will disappear and not resurface. So don't be concerned that you got an email and now you've been hacked. When you get hacked is when you actually click within a link in that email, which is where a lot of the hackers get you, by making an email that looks like it's a legit email, but it's not. And then you click something and all of a sudden they have your information. So you want to make sure that the email you're receiving is from a trusted source. Um, and even those, I tell my mother this all the time, all this stuff that's being passed, you might be on a WhatsApp, and all these links that are being passed around. It's like, oh, check this out, it's funny, or this video. Most of them are harmless, but every once in a while there's one in there that is not, and it's really hard to find which one. The only way to be really safe is to not click on anything. But with email, it's easier. Just don't click on an email. There are certain ways, and I didn't pull up an example of this, and I'll see if I can figure it out to how to show you. If you get an email that's questionable, even if you think, let's say, let me pick a very well, Amazon. You get an email from Amazon and you're so used to Amazon, you're like, oh yeah, this is a legit email. But I've actually fallen for the Amazon ones as well. You have to read the email. If there's any misspelling within an email, that's usually a good sign that this is not, I mean, sometimes typos happen even at that level, but hackers usually miss, and there's sometimes it's just not written well, or there's misspelled words in there. That is a sign that this is not legit. If it has an attachment, never click on an attachment within an email. If you're unsure, call that person, call that company, say, did you send me something? Because it's the attachments that are the worst. You download, and now you download a software on your website, that's probably going to be hazardous. The other way you can tell is if you click the from address of the email probably says Amazon. If you just click on that address, if you right click on it and to see the full address, if it comes with a bunch of gibberish or numbers or the name of a person, you know that this is a fake email. If it says amazon.com or info@amazon.com, that's probably from the company. But if it has it looks, usually they have a lot of different characters in there, and that's usually coming from a hacker. I don't have an example to show you, but I hope that kind of explained it.
We have some additional advice people are putting in the chat, and you can comment on it if you'd like.
I
One
can't read the
person
chat.
wrote, no,
Yeah.
I'm reading it to you. So one person wrote, sometimes clicking the unsubscribe button is a giveaway to the website that there is a live email, and they will sell it as a live email, which is more valuable. Sad situation. Just mark the email as spam. Google, Gmail is good in remembering spam emails. So that's one. And
That's
the
where
other
this.
one, yeah. And then the other one is something that you just said, check the email address if suspicious. Yeah.
Yeah. That's a very good point about the unsubscribe. It could be. Most of the times I just put stuff in junk box, but if I know it, or if it's a company that I at some point subscribe to and it's no longer, I just did one for flowers.com today, for example. I'm sure many years ago I signed, I ordered something from flowers.com. To this day, I got the email and I just got tired of it. So I went and unsubscribed. So that was a legit company. Okay, so why is this data collected? Okay, so here's an example for my personal. So I play beach volleyball, right? So in New York, we got the Hudson River. We play by the Hudson River, and every season I lose a number of balls into the river that just, float away. So I have to go and buy a new ball. So recently I was looking at the balls, and I started to get this beach volleyball ad everywhere I went. It was in my Yahoo email. It was every website that I went to was appearing in there. So that is a example of they cookie me, they track me, and now they're serving me this ad. Even though I already bought it, I'm still getting this ad. This is an example of DSW shoes, for example. I bought stuff from DSW. I am on their email list. But every time I go on the website, if I don't log in, they don't know. So I get served this thing again because they think I'm a new user. So I start to get some of this advertising. Oops, I did not mean to go forward or backwards. Okay. The bottom one is I was receiving with the beach ball ad was coming up a lot, and I tried to turn it off. I was like, okay, stop. And when you click on that X, now I got to report it. And I didn't want to report it to say it was a bad ad. So I just kind of left it alone. But I wanted you to see that example that Criteo is that middleman They are an ad technology supplier. They serve, they sell a lot of the ads to companies. They're kind of a middleman for the ad space plus the product. So they're serving me this ad. And even if I turn it off, they'll just serve me a different ad. It's living there on the website. So it's not, I can't make it go away. It's just going to choose to, oh, okay, well, he doesn't want to see this ad, then you suffer something else. So I just kind of wanted you to see that. If you see that example and you try to exit out, you close it, it's just going to give you options to see a different ad.
So that's if you're on a particular website where they have ads down the side, right? You're not talking about Facebook,
No, these
something like
actually
that.
appeared in my Yahoo email. So, on the right side of your, if you
Ah,
I also have Gmail, but a lot of my stuff still goes to Yahoo. So on the right side, I still get served these ads, and on the bottom as well. So that's an example of where these ads started to pop up even within my email screen. Okay, so they
very good.
followed to serving me. Yeah. So again, you can see that they're personalized to me based on what I've done. The analytics will help the company to understand better how to improve their services. And your, marketing people like myself or advertising agencies, hopefully they're what we call, they're optimizing how to spend the ad dollars and where to spend it. So you can't necessarily get away from it and not get these, but what's happening is you're just kind of helping them, or they're kind of feeding off the data to optimize for the next one. Now there is a way to not get any of these ads, and I'll show you what that looks like. But before we get to that, I wanted to show you an example of the websites you go to. So you might have gone to websites that you might see something like this on the bottom of the page. Now, as a marketeer, I hate putting that reject all option, because I know most people, it's the easiest. They're going to say reject. I don't want you to track anything that I do. So what most companies opt for is the option in the bottom, which is you can either accept, and if you pay attention, because the allowing option is always in a different color. The one that you probably want to click on if you want your privacy is the white box, right? Which is the cookie setting. And I'll show you what that looks like. But you have to go into, if you don't want them to track what you're doing on this website and eventually serve you more of their content and product, you have to go into cookie setting and you have to take certain actions. The reject all is making it really easy for you. They're being very kind to allow for this. They may, they may have enough data that they're set for a while, and they don't care if you say reject all. But most companies would prefer not to have the whole reject all on as an option.
Someone wrote, unfortunately, Google also collects your data from searches and starts sending you ads based on your search
Yeah.
topics.
Yeah, that is a retargeting. That's an example of a retargeting. So it will collect that. Now, for a specific website, a company, you can block them by going into that cookie setting. Now, when you go into the cookie setting, you have 4 options. The strictly necessary cookies, you can never turn that off. And that's always going to be active for any website. And they will collect a certain amount of information about what you're doing. But supposedly that's intended to make sure that the website works better and functions better by the actions that you take. Where you can turn things off is the performance cookies, functional cookies, and targeting cookies. So, and they're always, by default, they're probably turned on, which is, again, the bluish color or a greenish color. If you want to turn them off, you have to toggle this button to make sure, oops, this is a very sensitive mouse.
Susan just wrote, sometimes when you try to deselect marketing in cookies, they don't actually allow you to complete the transaction. Hmm.
That's illegal. They should not, unless there's problem with the website that, you're gonna have to go and find their information and report them on their website, say, I'm trying to do this. Please take my information, delete my information. You have to specifically tell them by whatever contact information that they have put on their website. They should not be doing that. That is not a good business behavior. Okay. But for most legit websites, you should be able to toggle and turn it off so that you don't get those marketing, targeting, and advertising information.
I
Okay, so
believe this originally came from Europe, which has much stricter
yeah,
privacy laws than the United States. And European websites started with these cookie consent uh,
yep,
at the
yeah, and
bottom.
we'll get into the differences in a couple of slides, I think, but yes, it originated with some of those restrictions. So again, this is another, what you need to do is you need to go and turn these off. We just kind of talked about that if you want to do that. But remember, every time, if it's a website that you keep going back to, you're gonna have to do this every single time because it doesn't remember you from your past behavior, which you've been on the website before. By not turning these off, it remembers you. It's like, oh, Ellie's back on the website. Let me show her some of the content that's new that she might be interested in because I know what she likes to read. But by turning these off, they don't know that, you don't have that information. So you might have to do this every single time that you go on a website.
Question, who can you report to about bad business behavior?
Technically, bad business behavior, technically the Better Business Bureau. It's probably your safest bet to go to first. Um, if you're trying to report them because they're not allowing you to make certain choices about what we just went through, first try to email. There should be an email or contact information somewhere on the bottom of the website. Usually, if you send an email and you say, I couldn't take this action. I want my information deleted. I don't want to be tracked, or your website wouldn't allow me to do this. It might be a technical issue and they might go in. If it's in good faith, they might go in and fix it. Remember, websites break sometimes. It may not be intentional, but things go wrong. I've managed websites many times, and there's always some issue that arises. A page doesn't work, something breaks, but usually it's not intentional. But give that a try before reporting a business. If you do it if it happens multiple times or no one responds to you, then maybe that's an action that you want to take.
She also wrote, very conveniently, they don't remember the cookie settings. They certainly can do it, but they won't. Uh,
But no, because when you turn it off, then there is no cookie setting. So they can know that you're back again and they want to you have to turn it off. That's the whole, that's defeating the purpose. So if you want them to remember you, then you got to leave it on. But now you left it on so they know stuff about you. If you turn it off, then they don't know who you are. So when you go back, they don't know who you are to turn it off for you again.
yeah, and I personally, I have some, antivirus software that might remove all the cookies that are on my computer. Uh, and then when I go back on a website, I always get the cookie settings on the bottom for sure because I keep erasing everything.
Yeah, I mean, you can go to those extremes and do that. It just and you can go in and clear your cache and delete all this stuff from your computer. But what you might also lose, and that which becomes very frustrating for me, is websites that you have passwords, and then every time you go back, you gotta enter a password again. You gotta log in every single time, even your email, right? So it's yes, you can clean this stuff up and you erase your history to a point, right? But you also erase the history that you need, which is I go to my email all the time. I don't want to log in every single time. Well, the system, you told it to delete everything and clean it up. So those are the things that you need to be aware of, that you might create some more work for yourself from some of the other sites that you like going to by protecting yourself from other sites. There's always a pros and cons and things you need to weigh. So managing your privacy, regularly review and adjust your privacy settings in your social media account, on your phone, on your computer. Just go in and kind of check and see what the settings are. And make sure you're comfortable with those. Especially like Facebook sometimes changes some of their privacy settings, and it will tell you that things have changed. You should go in there and just look at to see where the settings are and if you're comfortable with some of those settings regularly. Cookies, just be mindful of the websites that are accepting those cookies, like we just talked about. And ad preferences. There's just a lot of online platforms that allow you to adjust your ads and preferences to limit the advertising. So just look for those, where you can, try to minimize your exposure if you're concerned about it. More on that. So here is, if you don't want to deal with any of those, when you go on a website and you have to set your cookies, you can always go in an incognito mode, both on your phone or on your computer. So anything you do in this incognito mode, it's not saved anywhere. Your browsing history or cookies, nobody's saving them. You're completely in the dark doing this without sharing your information. Again, some of the cons of that are you have to enter your credentials if you're using a website that you regularly use. Even in the incognito mode, it will not know who you are. So you have to enter your credentials every single time. So and I'll show you an example what that looks like. Again, we talked about clearing your browsing data from your cache from your computer, and opt-out tools that we just talked. I don't know about this Digital Advertising Alliance. I don't, I can't tell you. I would have to do even more research. But if you wanted to jot it down and research it, you might be able to go in there and just opt out of some targeted ads. I'm not actually quite sure how it really works, but it was an option that came up in my research, so I thought I'd share it with you.
We had also actually Digital Advertising Alliance was in the same office where I worked a while ago. So so they're a good reputable company. But we were talking about Google before, and Google behaves differently when you're not signed into your account versus when you are. So that's a thing to be aware of as well.
Mhm. Yep. Again, you won't remember anything that you do. So this is
And
an
a question,
example. Yeah, go
yeah.
ahead.
Um, um, One person asked, is opening and using a private window with Windows-based explorers the same as the incognito mode?
Yes, yes, it
And
is.
then someone else wrote, on your iPhone, Safari tells you how many trackers it has prevented from profiling you.
Yeah, I've heard Safari has put in place some advanced technology to kind of block, and I think I saw the ad on TV that they're managing this a little bit more actively versus passively. And that probably is because majority of people are probably using Google Chrome or Firefox for their browsing. And not a lot of people might be using Safari anymore. So they had to do something extra to bring a certain audience back. And that's the place they've chosen to invest in. So yeah, I think I don't know if it's 100%, but I do think that they have a lot more measurements around managing your privacy if you wanted to use Safari.
Someone posted something I never heard about. In 2023, Google settled $5 billion privacy lawsuit over tracking people using incognito mode. I didn't know that.
I did not know. Google's always in some kind of a lawsuit at somewhere in the world. So could be. Again, that is the intention. Now, if they fail to do that, I think that actually kind of jogs the memory. But I mean, this is the protection that we have when we have to trust the system that's working. You know, that is the intention behind it. If it did not work, then that's on Google. So that's probably why they got sued. So we talked about Europe. Someone brought that up. Yes, in Europe, there are more restrictions around consent versus the US. So me as a business, if I wanted to email a group of people in certain countries in Europe, there's multiple steps that I need to complete. I need to make sure that they have explicitly filled out a form and said, yes, I am willing to get your email. The question becomes, well, how did I have that initial conversation with you to begin with that you said, yes, okay, send me your emails. So this is why when you go to a lot of websites, there's forms, because I can't email you and say, hey, are you okay with getting my email? So you have to actively go on the website and sign up for it. Say, I want to get your newsletter. I want to get your content. And for even some countries in Europe, so here you might fill out a form and say, I want to get newsletter. You may or may not get an email that said, thank you for signing up, you know, just confirming that you're going to start getting email. In Germany specifically, as an example, that has to happen and they have to say yes again to that email. So not only I filled out a form and told you I want to receive this email, but there has to be a second screen or an email that I have to say, yes, that was me, that's what I wanted to do. So that's what we call it's a double opt-in. So they have to opt into something twice. So your question might be, will the US ever implement this? Not likely, not in the near future. Remember, US is a marketing machine. So many companies in the US, and that, they market to other businesses, to you as an individual. If we went to, and now there's some of this, like there's a California law, I think California classification, something, CCPA, that you may or may not have heard of. If you live in California, you might be a little bit more protected from this. But for the EU model to be adopted in the US, it will take some time. And there will probably be loopholes, that's my personal opinion, because businesses will lose so much data and money, and there's a lot of money in data if they go into a double opt-in, or I can't send you any email until you specifically tell me. So probably not likely, and if it does, further down the line and with a little less restriction. So if you were
One
looking
person
forward to that European model, I'm sorry, not up.
one person wrote, there is no privacy online. Just go with that assumption and be careful what personal info you volunteer. And also that, yes, EU is better at enforcing the privacy laws than the US. And there's nothing free on the internet. You are the product that gets sold everywhere. Yes, data is money. A lot of
That is
dialogue in the chat today.
that is 100% accurate. That is 100% accurate. So we talked about this. What happens is you reject the cookies, a little bit of loss of that personalization. They won't know you. You have to log in every time. Your shopping carts won't be remembered. If you put something in a shopping cart and you said, oh, I'm not ready to buy it, I'll come back later, it won't remember you. That item may not be there, so it increases just, you increase your privacy, but you lose certain things. So just be aware of that. But yes, probably you're never going to get 100% away from being tracked somewhere. I think to the point that was just made, because we're so used to this way of living now. It is, I cannot fathom not being on my phone and not searching on my phone and not buying stuff on my phone. If you're completely against any of this stuff, you just have to go dark. Don't leave, don't go, don't browse anything, don't buy anything online. I mean, even your credit cards sell your information. Probably if you read the fine line on all your credit card contracts that you get, they probably sell you information to third parties. They're the most notorious for it, probably. So your information will be shared somewhere with someone. But just be mindful again what you're sharing. So I'll give you an example of what to really be careful about. Websites that ask for your date of birth. Really try to understand why they need your date of birth, especially the year. Not if they ask for month and date because they want to, Starbucks wants to send you a birthday coffee, whatnot. But if they ask for the date, you got to be careful why they need that. Now, if it's a healthcare provider, yes, that makes sense because they use your age for certain things. But any other site, and I think financial services as well, because they have a lot of security around who accesses. But anything outside of that, you have to stop and ask why they're asking for your birthday. And I'll give you a little personal trick that I use. I have a fake birthday or a couple of fake birthdays that when I go to a website that doesn't really need my birthday, but I have to fill out that field to get to the next step, I put in my fake birthday. So, I mean, I don't know how much of a protection it is, but to a point, it's a protection that if someone, stole that data from that particular website, and now they go try to get credit under my name with that they have my date of birth, they don't really have my date of birth. They have some random date of birth that's not really mine. So that's a little trick that I use that hopefully that can also help you. Entering your social security number, never enter that anywhere. If a website asks for it, call them. There's always a phone number. Share it with them on the phone if it's legit, but I never share mine on any kind of website. So those are the two main ones that you really need to look, watch out for. Now, of course,
Someone asked, is there a downside to using a fake birthday?
I've never come across it. And you can always fix it. Like if it's a website that you absolutely are like, oh no, like, or if you didn't write it down and now you got to go and prove that it's you forgot your password and you can't remember what date of birth you put. Yeah, that's the problem because now they don't believe you.
Mhm.
That's the only downfall, but I haven't on those websites that don't really need your date of birth. No, I've never come across any. If it's a big issue, I might call them and say, hey, I don't like to enter my birth date online into any system. So I'm happy to have a conversation with you, but you can't put it in. So my personal experience.
And then we have a couple of comments about apps on phones, but you're not talking about that now, so maybe we can hold off on those.
I did apps on phones. We can talk about that. Is there a specific question? Because I didn't include it in this slide.
Okay, yeah, one person wrote that all apps on your phone track, collect, and sell your data, even when you are without you sharing any data. It's
Yeah,
called app tracking.
yeah, because you're downloading it from a Google App Store. So that's one, Google already has that data. But yes, they're sharing that information with the app that you just downloaded. So you have to be careful. I mean, don't go, downloading a bunch of apps unless it's really necessary. And we all fall into all these fun apps that come up and we're excited to download them and see how it works. And sometimes we forget about we download them and we never use them and they're sitting, make sure you go in and you clean your phone and delete the apps that you have not used or don't want to use. A lot of times when you delete it, it does say it will delete all the data with it. Hopefully that is true, but you should go ahead and do it. And yes, just be mindful of what you're downloading. A lot of these, I can't remember what the examples were. There's something that a lot of some of my family members recently were or do you download an app, and if you sit there and you just click, 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 click on it, you get some kind of incentive where they actually pay you. What you're actually doing is you're just feeding it data, right? Yes, you might get something for it, but how you got to understand is that what is it costing you, right? So just be careful about. I mean, I think you're all smart enough to know if something's too good to be true or something just seems a little fishy. It's like, why do I need this app? Think twice about downloading. I don't have TikTok. Now I know like a lot of people use TikTok, but for my job, I have to be in all the social media because in the businesses we have to have Instagram, we have an account, you have Facebook and all that, and I'm in them. But if I like Snapchats, I didn't get into it. And TikTok, I didn't get into it. Those are like huge data gatherers because everything you watch and you interact and you forward to other people, they're just gathering all that data. I mean, we
Yeah,
do it
one
in
person wrote that TikTok, their information is going to China. I don't know if that's verified. Maybe it is.
it is a
They
Chinese.
dispute that. Yeah,
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 but I don't know. I think TikTok's a gray area.
could
I don't
be.
know
Yeah.
where it is, but
And
to
then
me,
someone else wrote, in Asian countries, they use their phones to pay for everything. So
yes,
she doesn't think that they worry about privacy as much as we do.
yes. I remember which country a friend of mine recently visited, and he could not purchase anything with a credit card or cash. He had to download the app that was specific. I think it was Japan or maybe China, and they had to use that to make purchases. So that is a way that both the companies and the government have decided, oh no, we're going to track everything that you do.
Mhm.
So
Sometimes I use my phone to pay for things. There are vending machines. I could use it. Practically every business there is, you could just, you
yeah,
know,
I do too.
instead of the tap and go with the actual credit card, I can actually just put my phone
Yeah,
on the machine.
I
Yeah.
do too. We all do it, and it's not again. Those
Yeah.
things are not intended to be bad unless they get hacked and someone which happens, but I don't discourage you from doing those things that have made us more modern shoppers or modern country because that's the way that's the direction we're probably going into. You're not going to see a lot of people eventually carrying. I mean, right now not a lot of people carry cash. I don't even carry my credit card anymore, right? Because I have my phone and all the credit cards are saved there. Somebody's going to hack into my phone and take my credit card. That's like me losing my credit card anyway. It's the same process. So I don't discourage you from doing those things. I think this is just a digital age that we do a lot more things. We're efficient by doing things online, and this is going to continue to grow. But you do have to be just like if you walked into a dark alley and then someone would say, be aware of your surroundings. You have to be aware of your surroundings and the actions you take when you're online and on your phone. Doesn't mean you should stop doing these things. Just be careful and continue to monitor your credit report, monitor your credit card statements every once in a while. Monitor your online history. You just have to be more vigilant is doing these things more actively. You shouldn't wait to be for the other shoe to drop and someone tell you, oh, someone hacked into your credit card and they've made all these charges. You should be aware of what's happening.
We only have a few minutes left, so
I think
I'm
we
going to
just
hold
talked
off
about
on the
all,
question.
yes,
Okay.
we talked about all this stuff that, use strong passwords on your accounts. Yes, very important. Don't use easy ones that people can find. Be skeptical. Yeah, I think I'll leave it here. Any other final
Oh,
questions?
great. Yeah, we have one question. Could you please clarify psychographics from an earlier slide?
Psychographic is kind of similar to your behavioral, the things that you do, the actions that you take, and the things that are interesting to you, versus demographic being your age, your sex, those explicit things. The psychographics have to do with what up here interests you. What are some of the things that they have gathered from your mind based on the actions that you take.
And El Nariana suggested that everyone freeze their credit file in all three credit bureaus.
Oh yeah, you should. Yeah, you should always go in and I mean, if you're concerned, you can go in and tell all those three credit card, Equifax, I forgot what they are, but there's three big ones, and you can tell them to. If you freeze it, you also cannot apply for credit. You have to go through a lot of process to say, no, it's me. I'm trying to open a credit card. But if you're concerned, you can freeze it and they will monitor your account. They won't allow anyone to open credit but under your name. That's freezing it. That's if somebody told you you've been hacked and your credit information is your social security, especially, has been shared with someone. But if you just go in and pull a credit report from any of those every once in a while, you can kind of look and see what has been opened up in your name and how your credit's being used. Just do that
Yeah,
every once in a while.
yeah.
You're
And one person said it's actually easy. You can temporarily freeze and unfreeze your credit in the credit bureaus.
just do that
Yeah.
every once in a while.